Hi everyone, I think I'm going to do this in a bit of a podcast style. So by that I mean it's just going to be very casual and I'm going to do it all in one take. So we'll see how I go. But in this video I'm going to be sharing my process for working on my most recent pencil drawing. So I'm using several different brands of coloured pencils here and I'm working on Clairefontaine Pastelmat paper. Now, if you saw my YouTube video on this, you'll know that it's taken me a little while to get to grips with this paper and to really get the hang of working on it. But after several failures and lots of experimentation, I've actually created 3 pieces now that I'm happy with, and it feels so good to say that because I did think at one point that I was never going to get there, but that just proves that perseverance is a very important thing when it comes to art. So yeah, I think I'll just talk you through the process. I mean, you can see what I'm doing, but there were several things that I wanted to mention about using this paper and exactly how I'm working. So I have some notes in front of me. So I should just mention that Pastelmat paper comes in quite a few different colours, and pretty much all of them are very nice. There are a couple that I'm not as keen on, but I have to say that I think this brown is quickly becoming one of my favourites. I also really love the sand colour, and there's a light blue-grey, which is really nice. I think they just call it light blue, but it looks very grey to me. That's a nice subtle one. And there's also another one I love called anthracite, which is like a dark charcoal grey. But I have a few more colours that I am hoping to work on. Maybe if not this week, certainly very soon. So I'll be experimenting with different colour backgrounds because I'm finding that working on a colour instead of a white page is actually bringing a really interesting new, I don't know, like atmosphere to my work or something. It's also making me think about colour differently because it's surprising how different the colours of the pencils look against the different colour backgrounds. So you kind of have to get used to that as well. So I might pick a pencil that I know, kind of like I know how it works on a white sheet of paper, and on this paper it will either not show up very much at all or it will just look, I don't know, slightly odd. So it's been a little bit of trial and error with the colours as well, but it's actually encouraging me to use some of the colours that I have that are maybe not traditionally my favourite colours to use or that I don't use very often, and you'll see this as we go along with this piece. Anyway, so yeah, this is the brown Pastelmat paper. It's a really nice sort of pinkish brown, lovely colour. Yeah, I wanted to talk a bit about my colour palette as well. So I didn't decide beforehand exactly what my colour palette was going to be, and this has been the case for pretty much all of the pieces I've been working on. Some of my experiments, I think I did pick a colour palette out beforehand, but certainly on the ones that I've been working on this week that have turned into finished pieces, I kind of have an idea. So for this one, I knew it was going to be rusts, browns and oranges, but I didn't gather all the pencils and put them into a palette before I started. I very much have allowed myself to work intuitively, and I'm finding that not only does that seem to work for me somehow, it really keeps my interest in a piece as well. And it's also having some unexpected results, which I don't think I would have had if I had chosen the colour palette beforehand. And it's kind of the same with the composition of these pieces in that there's no pre-planning. So I'm working very intuitively, and you can see that there's no preliminary drawing or anything like that. I'm not planning out these compositions at all. I don't plan them out in a sketchbook or on another sheet of paper or anything. So what you're seeing is me kind of making decisions in real time here. I say real time. I actually, I found that I'd recorded 1.5 hours of footage, and I would say that this piece probably took me, I would say probably a good 2.5 hours. So I didn't film all of it, but I filmed enough of it that you get an idea of the progression of the piece. And then obviously I edit it down in the editing process to make it much more easy for you to watch. You can see that I'm just building it as I go along. So one thing that I did want to talk about, I think I wrote it down here somewhere, that you have to be very, very careful when you're working on the Pastelmat paper with coloured pencil. And I would imagine it's the same if you're working with pastels. Even though it does hold on to the pencil, you can still smudge it. So you can, if you like accidentally dragged your hand across the drawing, or you're resting on a bit that you've already done, then it can smudge it. And it is quite difficult, I have found, to erase on this paper. So you have to be really careful when you're drawing. So what I'm doing is I'm working generally from left to right, as I'm right-handed. So I'm working left to right and from top to bottom. And I'm very much aware whenever I'm drawing that I mustn't have any heavy areas that I'm going to be leaning my hand against to draw the other parts. So I hope that makes sense. I feel like I didn't say that in the most concise way ever, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. If anyone uses this paper, by the way, and you've had success with erasing mistakes, let me know what eraser you're using and how you're doing it, because I've only tried to erase a little bit here and there, and yeah, it wasn't that great, to be honest. I've managed to cover up anything that I wasn't happy with, so that's okay, because obviously I'm using the background colour of the paper quite a lot. I want to allow quite a bit of that to show through on some of these, so I really don't want smudged marks going across it. I also wanted to talk to you a bit about the pencil brands, because people have been asking me about this. Which brands of pencil work best on the Pastelmat? Okay, so I would say that some are more successful than others. Some seem to create quite a lot of dust. So you have all these little dusty crumbs that are coming off your pencil. And what you're not seeing in this video is the number of times that I pick up the drawing, I was going to call it a painting, pick up the drawing and actually just blow the little crumbs off, because if you leave them on there, they will smudge. It is guaranteed that at some point that's going to smudge. I found that the coloured pencils that work the best on the Pastelmat, if you don't want a lot of dust, and that will also keep their points, are the Holbein Artists and the Faber-Castell Polychromos. Now these two pencils, in particular the Polychromos, I have quite a few of them, but I don't use them, I think, as much as I use, say, my Derwent Drawing or Derwent Lightfast, my Caran d'Ache Luminance, all of those types of pencils. I generally favour those ones over the Polychromos and the Holbein, because I usually find those two a little bit too hard, and I like a soft pencil that you can get a lot of texture with. But on this paper they're absolutely brilliant. Because they're hard, basically, they keep their point, whereas I'm finding that with the other pencils they're not keeping their point. I'm having to sharpen them. So this is another thing that you're not seeing, is the number of times I have to stop to sharpen my pencils, because the way I'm working here, a lot of the time I'm needing, a lot of these lines are quite clean, and so I'm needing a very sharp point, and like within a few strokes it's getting worn down to the point where it's too blunt for me to get a nice crisp line. So I'm having to just sharpen a little bit here and there all the way through. But with the Polychromos and the Holbein pencils, I'm not having to do that. So I'm really liking them for this, I have to say. But it's nice to use a variety of pencils. So I'm using all sorts of different brands. I think all of the ones I just named, and also the Prismacolor Premier. So I'm using those too. And honestly, all of them work. They're all beautiful. I find that oranges in particular, rusts and oranges, seem to look fantastic on this Pastelmat paper. Pretty much all of the different colours of Pastelmat that I've tried, the oranges and rusts look great. And you'll see at the end of this video, I'll show you how this piece actually looks, because I noticed when I was videoing, the video is not picking up, or the camera, whatever, the camera's not picking up exactly how vibrant this looks. Now, you know me, I'm a lover of muted colours, earthy colours, very soft colours. I don't often use bright colours in my work, but I'm finding that on this paper, I'm working with a lot of earthy colours, but then if I add something like this gorgeous orange, like the really bright orange, if you look at the tree on the left, the leaves of that one, that's the Caran d'Ache Luminance. Now let me think. I think it's called something like dark cadmium orange. Now, there's not much that's dark about that cadmium orange. I'd say it's more bright cadmium orange, but it's absolutely beautiful. And it just adds enough of a contrast. I think, certainly on certain colours of this paper, if I decided to just use all of my usual colours, like all muted, moody, darker colours, I think that it wouldn't have enough of a contrast. I think you need, on some of the backgrounds, like this kind of hit of colour. So that's what I've discovered with working with pencils on this paper. I've also discovered that using the pencils in different ways is really good. So you'll see that sometimes I'm holding the pencil very much in the normal way, so that I'm kind of scribbling with it almost, and other times I'm holding it on its side and I'm creating this misty effect. I did that on at least one of the bushes on this, so that I did a background of just like this really loose soft colour, and then went over the top with the point of a pencil and did all of the little details. So yeah, those are a few things that I've discovered. Let's have a look down my list and see if there's anything else I wanted to chat to you about. Oh yes, I wanted to chat to you about the fact that throughout all of this, I'm constantly thinking about value or tone. So I want to make sure that each piece has a really good tonal range or contrast. So by that I mean that it has light tones, mid-tones and dark tones. So I'm choosing the pencils with that very much in mind, and I just keep going with these basically until I feel that they have enough of a range. So this is why, for example, so say in this one, I need really dark tones somewhere. So I do the really dark tree trunk on the left and that little dark bush also that's just behind the other tree. And I would say for the light tone, it's kind of the paper and the blue, the kind of light blue grey that's coming in on the left. And then we have a lot of mid-tone with the other colours. So you need that contrast and that balance. And it's something that I think also that I tend to do intuitively. I've always done it, and it's only recently that people have started asking me about it, and it's forced me to kind of think about it because I was just doing it naturally. But now I'm more aware of it, if this makes sense. I do actually consciously think a little bit more about it when I'm working on something. But it was always there. It was always something I was thinking about, just not, I don't know, just intuitively, I guess. So I think actually we're kind of getting to the end of this now. And I think I've talked to you about pretty much everything I wanted to. Oh, I think I got distracted earlier, didn't I? And didn't tell you that at the end of this video, there will be a photo of this piece taken with my Canon camera where you'll see a much more accurate representation of how the colours look. Because when I was filming, I think this is what I was saying earlier, I get so distracted. I'm so sorry. I was finding that the camera just wasn't picking up how vibrant these colours look or the depth of them. And the only way I could do that was when I took the picture with my Canon camera. And so I've put that at the end of this video because I wanted you to get a really good idea of how this piece actually looks and the colour palette I used. Because I don't know why, it's just not looking the same on film, which is a little bit frustrating. Anyway, I thought I'd finished this piece. So this is a little anecdote. I thought I'd finished this piece yesterday evening, and Dominic came upstairs and I said to him, I finished another piece, and I showed it to him and he was like, oh, it's lovely. Oh yeah, I really like that. And I was like, I can tell that he's thinking something. And so I said, but what are you thinking? And he said, I just want to say, he said, you don't have to do this, but I just want to say that I think that you should potentially just add a little red or orange moon or sun. It can be a moon or sun. I actually think this is the sun. It's like sunset. He said you could just add it between those tree trunks there. And I was like, but I'm going to smudge it. I was so worried about like messing it up, like maybe it didn't look right or I'd smudge it. And he said, I just think it would finish it. And so I decided to be brave. I actually got a sheet of paper to rest across the drawing and rested my hand on that while I did this little bright orange. I used the same dark cadmium orange pencil that I used for the tree on the left for its leaves. I just did a tiny, I think it's a sun. I'm going to say it's a sun. And it just somehow added another element to the atmosphere of this piece. So Dominic was totally right. And I think that shows the importance of having a fresh pair of eyes on your work. And just sometimes being brave enough to make a little change at the end. I'm so glad I did. Anyway, I think that's all you need to know about this piece. I hope that you found that useful. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section beneath this video and I will get back to you. It sometimes takes me a little while to get around to all the comments, but I do eventually. So yeah, I try to keep on top of them. Okay, everyone, thanks so much and I'll see you soon.